Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's good to see my friend, the Parliamentary Secretary, here ready to answer this question, and I look forward to continuing to work with the government on this issue that is so important and should transcend party lines. Mr. Speaker, I've spoken out regularly in this House and elsewhere about the human rights violations confronting the Muslim Rohingya people in Burma. The United Nations Office of the High Commission of Human Rights released a report into the situation 3 months ago, and I'd like to read an excerpt from the press release. Mass gang rape, killings, including of babies and young children, brutal beatings, disappearances, and other serious human rights violations by Myanmar security forces in a sealed-off area north of Mangdao in northern Rakhine State have been detailed in a new UN report issued Friday based on interviews with victims across the border in Bangladesh. Of the 204 people individually interviewed by a team of UN human rights investigators, the vast majority reported witnessing killings, and almost half reported having a family member who was killed, as well as family members who were missing. Of the 101 women interviewed, more than half reported having suffered rape or other forms of sexual violence. Especially revolting were the accounts of children, including an 8-month-old, a 5-year-old, and a 6-year-old who were slaughtered with knives. One mother recounted how her 5-year-old daughter was trying to protect her from rape when a man, quote, took a long knife and killed her by slitting her throat. In another case, an 8-month-old baby was reportedly killed while his mother was gang raped by 5 security officers. Mr. Speaker, 2 days ago, Aung San Suu Kyi said that she would not allow a UN fact-finding mission on the ground in Rakhine State, saying, "We do not think that the resolution is in keeping with what is actually happening on the ground." To claim that these atrocities are not happening, but at the same time to deny anyone the capacity to investigate, this is despicable. And this is complicity. At present, Aung San Suu Kyi is choosing to be complicit in these abuses. She should either allow international access to Rakhine State now, or she should give back her Nobel Peace Prize. Here in Canada, we need to up the diplomatic pressure on the Burmese government and on Aung San Suu Kyi in particular. She is, after all, an honorary Canadian citizen, honored in the past for human rights activity, and yet we have this deplorable situation, and her in particular speaking to say that they will not allow the investigation to proceed in Rakhine. Having reflected on these atrocities, there can be nothing more important than saving these women, children, and men who are facing horrific abuses in Rakhine. So I want to ask the government specific questions. Will they raise this issue directly with Aung San Suu Kyi? Will this be raised directly with her, directly with the Burmese government? I know we've had statements in the House, and I appreciate those statements. But will this be raised with Aung San Suu Kyi and the government of Burma? And secondly, will the government direct our embassy to speak out and do advocacy, do clear public advocacy on issues facing Rohingya, Kachin, and other minorities in Burma? Because I believe that we need a stronger voice from the Canadian Embassy speaking clearly and publicly on behalf of our values. Thank you.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs with respect to Consular Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to start my speech by thanking my colleague once again for having a strong voice on this issue. I really think when we talk here, we're not really debating. It's really important to make sure that Canadian Parliament goes on record in stating and commenting on our frustration by the ongoing situation over there and our condemnation where ethnic minorities, particularly the Rohingyas, facing violence day in and day out. And our government continues to be monitoring the situation and have not missed an opportunity to raise this case. So I agree with my colleague. The situation that the Rohingyas are facing is incredibly troubling. And it's complicated further by the fact that the state of Rakhine has been completely closed off to media, to international inspectors, to international monitors. And this is making it a troubling situation, Mr. Speaker. So our government has never missed an opportunity to raise our concerns with the Burmese government, whether it was with the president, whether it was Aung San Suu Kyi, and whether it's the Commander-in-Chief. We've never missed an opportunity to express the concerns on behalf of our government, but frankly on behalf of Canadians who are watching what's happening over there and are expressing deep concern for the targeting of ethnic minorities, including the Rohingyas. Mr. Speaker, we also note the instability that it's causing in the region. The Rohingyas today are becoming the largest stateless group in the world, and they're causing, there's a refugee crisis over there where neighboring states like Bangladesh are having to deal with the situation. Last month, I visited the United Nations Human Rights Council in Geneva, and I had the opportunity to meet with the UNCHR Asia desk, where they briefed me on the situation in Burma. And I heard directly from them the concerns that they have about stateless Rohingya and their situation, whether it was inside Myanmar or in Bangladesh. And this was important for me to hear on behalf of the Canadian government. Mr. Speaker, we have offered close to over $4 million of aid to help people in need in that region, to offer humanitarian aid. And when the former Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister Stéphane Dion, visited Burma last year, we directly expressed our concerns, and we publicly supported a United Nations fact-finding mission. Now, I know the Myanmar government is rejecting our calls for this. I know they are rejecting the international call for this, but we will continue to push for that, and we'll work with like-minded countries to push for that. We know that the Special Commission, led by Kofi Annan, has issued an interim report, and we're encouraged that the Burmese government has endorsed those findings, but that's not enough, Mr. Speaker. We will continue to call on the Burmese government to find a way to end the violence and to offer help to those in need, particularly the Rohingyas. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Sherwood Park, Port Saskatchewan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the Parliamentary Secretary for his comments. This push for a proper inquiry that would involve the Burmese government allowing access to Rakhine is extremely important. And of course, I've been critical of the government on some of these issues in the past, but I recognize that Minister Dion did tweet calling for that access, and that was important. But now we need to continue the pressure. And I want to propose, and I don't expect that the Prime Secretary will have an immediate answer to this proposal, but I want to propose that the Prime Minister directly contact Aung San Suu Kyi. We know the Prime Minister has an international profile when it comes to issues of inclusion, and we recognize that. And this would be an opportunity for him to contact directly Aung San Suu Kyi and strongly express Canadians' concerns on these issues and push for that necessary access. That advocacy is so important, and I strongly encourage the Government of Canada to look for further opportunities to increase that pressure because it clearly hasn't been enough up till now. There needs to be more pressure from the international community. Thank you.
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, once again, I do want to thank my honourable colleague for his intervention, and I want to commit to him that I will work with him, and I know our Minister of Foreign Affairs will work with him and our colleagues here in the House of Commons to make sure that the voice of Canada, the voice that represents all Canadians who are concerned and troubled by what's happening there, will be conveyed to the Burmese government and will ensure that human rights are defended and protected abroad, and particularly in these troubling situations. It's been going on for too long, and all international voices have been calling for a fact-finding mission, have been calling for opening up the state of Rakhine. We will continue to do that, and I appreciate the support from the honourable member for this issue, and I welcome his ideas, and I welcome his input on this, because as Canadians, we are a voice around the world that people look up to, that defends human rights and defends inclusion and pluralism. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The motion to adjourn the House